I remember the first time that I had a reckoning with my identity. I was probably about maybe 20 or 21 years old, and I was in the hood with some of the homies. We was sitting around in the projects, drinking and smoking. And I remember from where the project set on this certain hill in the hood, you could see clear to downtown from there. And the sun was setting at this time, so you could see the sun like setting over in the west over downtown. And I just remember sitting there thinking how nice it looked. And I started dreaming at that point. Like my mind took me into a place where I started dreaming about where I could be in life and what I could be doing at some point. And everybody else didn't even notice what was going on. They were sitting around talking. And I remember I interrupted the conversation and I just went into this whole thing about living beyond where we were at that current time and being better versions of ourselves and dreaming big. And they all kind of looked at me for a second. They stopped and they said, man, get the fuck out of here, man. Ain't nobody trying to hear that shit. And they went back to drinking. And it kind of hit me at that moment that there might have been something bigger destined for me. That I wasn't really a part of the program that I was in, and that there might be other plans for me in life that God had for me. That was the first time I had a reckoning with my identity. It wouldn't be the last time I had a reckoning with my identity. Since then, I've had them over and over and over again. And what I realized through studying the teachings of Buddha is that this is what's called the death of the ego. It's when you start to strip away all of the things that have been told to you through your life that you have to be, and you get real naked with yourself. You go inward and you start doing the work and unprogramming yourself from all of the things that you have been told that you're supposed to be your entire life. It also puts you face to face with the traumas of your life. So one of the things that's been happening a lot to me lately is that all of my trauma from my childhood has been coming back to me through quiet meditation. And the more that I start to listen to information and things that puts me in a place to where I have to confront myself, the more I realize my entire life has just been a series of me making decisions and being a person that I was told to be from the time I was a child. So I'm in a process right now of reverse engineering my entire life just based on who I want to be and what makes me happy, not based on what I've been told will make me happy if I follow these certain guidelines. One of the interesting things that I realized was that some of the accolades that I had attached to myself were actually things that were responses to trauma from my life. I'm one of the hardest working people that you ever want to meet. Anybody who knows me will tell you that I work harder than anybody they know. More than likely, like they got this whole idea that Mexicans work hard. I work 10 times harder than they do. You know, I work a 16 to 18-hour day, 7 days a week sometimes. You know, I own my own business and I've worked my way up to that, but working that hard has taken its toll on me. And one of the things that I realized and learned recently is that it's a response to trauma. The reason why I worked so hard when I started to really get deep into the weeds of why I work the way that I do is because my value was attached to how hard I worked and what I could provide to other people. As early as I can remember, I was told that if you're a man, you had to provide something in order to be worth something to people. And I was kind of showed that. I remember one time, or I would say the earliest time that I got this lesson was when I had left from my mom and dad's house and moved back to Chicago to stay with my grandmother. I was going to high school, but things didn't work out because I kept getting in trouble. I was getting in fights. It was gang shootings going on all the time. There was just a lot of stuff going on at the school that kept me from getting my education, you know. And I was being a bad kid. I was wild. I was 15 years old, so I mean, no excuses though. Everybody is responsible for their own stuff. So I dropped out of school and I started hanging out with my big brother. Uh, this is not the brother from a previous story, but another brother. I started hanging out with him every day. We were getting high together, and all I really wanted to do was hang around him. I looked up to him. So we hung out, we smoked every day, we chilled. And I remember one day when the money got low and we didn't have weed, we didn't have anything, and I had nothing to offer him. He looked at me and he told me, he said, man, you really can't hang around me if you're gonna be broke. And I had to sit with that. And I remember at that moment, I kind of sat, I was around the neighborhood, just kind of hanging out, watching everything that was going on with really no direction. And there was this drug dealer in our neighborhood who he was having problems with some of his workers. So one day I'm sitting out there one morning, the police had raided one of his tips. And this was like the third time this had happened. They had locked his guys up, found the drug stash, took his work, and he was upset. And I went up to him and I told him, I said, man, look, if you want me to work that tip for you, I can, and I'll make it happen. He said, be here tomorrow at 7:00. So I showed up the next day at 7:00. I started working that tip, and until I was 32 years old, I sold drugs, intermittently, but I sold drugs until I was about 32 years old when I got custody of my kids. So that was the beginning of me realizing that if you didn't have anything as a man, you really were looked at a certain way in society. Like a man has to provide something. If he doesn't have anything, he doesn't have any value. So I tied my identity to that, and I didn't realize that as an adult, that was still showing up the same way. But I think it shows up for everybody in the same way. We all tie our identities to what we're able to provide to other people, whether it be our kids, our moms, our family, the women in our lives, whatever it may be. It's also a huge part of our culture too, right? So you gotta have the nice car, you gotta have the chains, you gotta have something to show for yourself. Otherwise, you don't feel like you have the value, and people will tell you that you don't have value. But what I realized is that all of those things are shallow in the grand scheme of things, because if you lose them tomorrow, then what do you have? If you tie your identity to things that bring attention from other people and admiration from other people, but when you don't have them, then what happens? And over the course of my life, that happened more than once, where when I had something to offer people, they were there in my life. And when I no longer had anything to offer them, they walked away. So as of late, once again, like I said, I've been doing this reverse engineering of my life and realizing that what I have to do is kill the ego. And the ego is attached to everything in your life, right? You may not think that it is, but really, image and fear are kind of the motivating factor in people's lives, and it keeps them operating in a certain way. A lot of people will not leave the position that they're in because fear. Fear dictates that you stay in a certain place. And what it really is that your brain is a safety mechanism. Your brain is not a rational thing that wants to expand, it wants to shrink. And it wants to shrink because it wants to keep you out of danger. I liken it to getting in a car accident. If you were ever in a car accident, then like maybe days, sometimes months, sometimes years after getting in an accident, you're going to start to drive more safely because your brain is telling you you need to be safe if you drive at all. Some people will refuse to drive for a long time after they get in an accident, right? That's your brain's response to trauma. It's the same thing with growth. So you could be in a situation that may not be the best situation in the world. Your conditions are bad, but your brain at least knows that this is something that we do. It's repetitive, right? So it responds to repetition. The minute you try to remove yourself from those circumstances, it may trigger a response inside of you that says, hey, this is not safe. We have a repetitive thing that we do. We sit in the same place. We do the same thing every day. And if we do not do things in this certain manner, then we're uncertain. So the brain likes certainty because certainty is safe. So one of the things that I had to realize is that I had to strip away the ego of fear and strip away the ego of certainty. And I've been able to get far in my life as a result. But I'm also graduating to another level as of now from where I currently was. I started a business 4 years ago, and I've been making a great deal of money doing so. But I found myself getting up and being in a repetitive state every day. I would get up, I would work, I would take vacations with my wife, I would do it all over again. And I remember this summer I was sitting in my truck riding, and I told myself, this is what I do. I get up and I go to work and I work hard, and this is what I do. Well, I ended up getting in a car accident and I flipped my truck over 3 times. And I walked away from that situation with just a scratch on my hand. But I remember immediately after, I said, God, what is this supposed to teach me? And the answer never comes right away. If it does, you're lucky. But for me, the answer didn't come right away. It actually came a few days ago, and this accident happened back in May. What God is trying to tell me is that I do not have to tie my identity to my work so much. I can slow down. I can focus on loving myself. My identity and the people who love me, they'll still be there at the end of the day. If I'm not giving them $1 million, if I'm not doing all of the things that I'm doing, if they're not there, then they're not meant to be in my life. They'll fall away, but I'll still have me, and I'll still have the love that I have for me. Self-love is more important than anything that you could ever give or that anybody else could ever give you. Self-love won't go anywhere. It won't flake on you. It won't only be there when you have something to offer it. Self-love is something that requires you to do the work on you. So that's what I've been on. My practice now has been on killing my ego in every way. Everything that tells me I need to be everything for everybody else, and simply being there for myself, looking at myself and being enough for myself. Once again, this is a practice that they practice in Buddhism. It's just a lot of self-awareness and telling yourself what it is that you truly want to be, dealing with your traumas, getting over all of the things that have been programmed into you. I'm getting a lot of feedback, and one of the biggest things that people wanted to know was what was the videos about, the content that I put out previously about my family. And I got a call from one of my friends. He thought it was me condemning my loved ones for things that had happened in the past. And I had to let him know it was quite the opposite. That was not what I was doing at all. What I was actually doing was telling a story so I can give you an idea of where I come from and who I am today, and how those things that I actually went through were actually my testimony. I think in every culture they have a story, or they have a word for having gone through something and coming out on the other side a brand new person, whether it be the phoenix rising from the ashes. In religion, they call it your testimony, at least in Black religion. The stone that rose through concrete, all of these different things, right? So the previous stories weren't stories to condemn anything or to be a crybaby about my past. It was actually for me to give you an idea and let everybody out there that's listening to the content know that I've been through just as much as anybody else. It's just how I perceive the world is a lot different. I've stripped away the negativity from all of these things that supposedly happened to me and started living in a way where they're my testimony. They didn't happen to me, they happened for me. I'm the man that I am today because of these things, because I reflected on all of these things And when I got out on the other side, I realized that I needed to be stronger. And God does not put you through anything in this world for you to break down. He's not trying to break you. He's trying to build a warrior at you. If you're alive today, if you can listen to what it is that I'm saying today, you're still in a position to look at your story a little bit different. The only problem is that nowadays we live in a world that rewards victimhood. So people believe that there's strength in being a victim. There's zero strength in being a victim. Zero. If you could look at your story, if somebody could tell your story, would you want it to be a story of triumph, or would you want it to be a story of how life beat you down and tossed you around and wore you out? I don't think anybody would want to have the second story. Everybody wants to have a story of triumph in their life, but you have to do the work to get to that point. The thing that troubles me the most about where we're at is that people don't understand that there's zero self-awareness that comes from attaching yourself to something that happens to you and actually saying somebody did something to you. I hear these things all the time, and I hear people talk about people who have done things to them in such a way that they act as if that other person should hold the pain that it is that they're holding on to. When somebody does something to you, they don't hold that pain that you're feeling. You hold that pain. Now, you can hope that they hold that pain, right? You can always hope that, hey, I hope they feel as bad as me. But that's bringing people down to your vibrational level instead of bringing yourself up out of that vibration. So you're holding on to pain, hoping that somebody else can feel what it is that you're feeling, instead of trying to heal yourself from the situation so that you could be a better person. Think of it this way. If you were to be able to call up the person on the phone and ask them or tell them the story of what they did to you and how they hurt you and all of these things, and the way you felt was based on their response, would you be okay if they told you to fuck off? Think about that now. That's what holding on to pain from somebody who supposedly did something to you does. It gives them all the power over you to be able to dictate how it is that you're going to feel about yourself. Now think about that. Then you realize there's a level of insanity to it. So, once you start to go within and you realize that you're enough, you can love yourself enough and be enough for yourself, then you no longer need the validation of people who you felt did something to you. i.e., we talk a great deal about parents and trauma from parents or relatives and loved ones. Your relatives and your loved ones are just people. They're just human beings just like you. If you ever were to sit and actually talk to them about some of the things that they might have gone through, I'm pretty sure they had some of the same situations in their lives that they dealt out on you. And that's why you ended up in that position. I was a single father for 8 years. And I would say today, when I talk to people, I say today, I don't feel like I did the best job as a father because I was full of trauma. I was still trying to figure out who I was as a man. I couldn't pour into a cup with my kids what I didn't have in my cup. So I messed up a whole lot of stuff. Now, I attempted to fix it, but now my kids are at an age where they're grown. And a lot of it they're going to have to figure out on their own at this point because I'm no longer in control. I can't have my hands on that situation. They're at an age where they can make their own decisions, and they do choose to. But I came into a situation, I was a father for 8 years, single father for 8 years, and I made a great deal of mistakes. But I was basically the antithesis of everything that happened to me as a child, or everything that I went through up until that point. It wasn't until I started to heal myself that I was able to go back, not only forgive my father for some of the mistakes that he made, my mom for some of the mistakes that she made, but also try to be a better father for my kids. At the time, I thought I was being a great father. I made sure they had a roof over their head and they had food in their stomach. I worked 16 to 17-hour days to make sure they stayed in a nice neighborhood. But I didn't cover all the bases. I dropped the ball a lot. And I'm human. I make mistakes. You know, that's the same way that we have to look at our parents. I would urge people who feel like, oh, my parents didn't do what they were supposed to do, to kind of go back and maybe talk to them about their story, see where they were at in life and what made them work in the way that they did and make the decisions that they made in your life. I guarantee you, trauma leads to more trauma. At some point, we have to stop and we have to try to fix it ourselves, though. It's up to us to fix it. They always say it only takes one person. It takes one person to stop the cycle. But that one person has to seriously focus on who they are and fixing themselves. Not who everybody wants them to be, not who the community tells them they need to be, not who society tells them they need to be. They actually have to go within and figure out who they are, because that's where the healing process begins. I do stuff like meditation in the morning. I meditate for 15 minutes every morning, and I just sit there and quiet, and I let my thoughts come. All the thoughts that scare me, the thoughts that trigger me, all the trauma, I let it all come in. And then I put those thoughts in a place. Some of my thoughts I label. Even when I'm out during the day and I'm walking around and interacting with people, if I have a negative thought, I'll put a tag on that thought and I'll say, hey, that was a negative thought that you just had. There's no room in your head for that. Let's put a tag on that and log it away. You know, that was an anxious thought that you had. There's no room for you in this place for that. Let's put a label on it and log that away. That was a hateful thought that you had. There's no room for that. Let's put a tag on that thought and put that on the shelf. We don't need that. What are we operating like this for? And so I've learned to control my mind, because they say that you have over 6,000 thoughts during the day. How many of those thoughts are actually good thoughts, productive thoughts, and lead you in a place where you're actually doing something positive, helping the world, or fixing your situation? As we go through this process and this journey, we're going to talk more so about mindfulness than anything. And I'm going to talk in particular about my journey of mindfulness, because I can't fix you. I don't even want to do content about how to fix anybody else. I can only talk about how I've been able to fix my life and figure out who it is that I need to be a better person for the people around me, but more than anything else, be a better person for myself. So, you know, this is part one of the journey of being mindful, you know, controlling your own environment, realizing that you're not a victim. Yeah, people may have hurt you. People may have done things to you, but it's for you to fix. They got a saying, it may not have been your fault, but it's your responsibility. I'm gonna say that again. It may not have been your fault, but it is your responsibility. That means that it's up to you to fix your outcomes and your circumstances. They got all these people on the internet telling you what other people need to do to be good for you. I'm hearing a lot of content where it's like, oh, women need to be this and men need to be this and all of these other things, right? Not a lot of content about how we need to look within to get everything that we need. So we may not even need other people to validate us. Let that sink in. It's your boy T. Rob. This is episode number 1. Everything else was just a preview up until this point, but now we're really getting ready to build. Like I said, the content is mostly going to be about me talking about the answers and conclusions that I've come through my own self-work. Again, this is not me telling you what it is that you need to do to be who it is that you need to be. Only you know that. This is about what I've been doing to better myself as a man. Peace. I'll see y'all on the next one.